Hi everyone, welcome back. So far, we are using static credentials to log into our web application, right? So here we have configured Sachin and Sachin at 123 one user, Rohit and Rohit at 123 another user, and Virat and Virat at 123. So total three users we have configured as a static user, and then we are able to log in with these credentials, right? So in this lecture I am going to show you retrieve the user information from database, and using those credentials we are going to log in into our web application. So how we can log into our web application by using credentials which are stored in database. It's pretty much easy guys, very easy. So let me show you. So before that, so let me open SQL Yoke. So here you can see, so we have a total 5 users. So in that 5 users, earlier we are storing password, raw password, right? So we are not encrypting and storing the database. So in real time environment or production environment, we should not store password, raw passwords, okay? So we have to encrypt the passwords by using different, we have a different algorithms, and we can use those, and we can encrypt the credentials, and we have to store in database. So then user password will be safe, right? So otherwise if you store raw password in your database, so everybody can see, you are all having database access, so they can see the user's credentials, and they can log into web application, and they can do whatever they want, right? So and also for hackers also very easy to hack the user credentials, so user password, right? So now, so instead of storing raw password, so we have to store encrypted password. So earlier class I have shown you, by using bcrypt password encoder we are encrypting the static credentials, right? So now what are all the users we are going to create with our application? So we have to store those credentials with encoding format. So we have to encode the password, and then we have to store into the database. So now let me show you how to encrypt the password which is entered by user, and we have to store encrypted password in database. Let me show you, okay? So now from where we are storing the user information, so we have written business logic in user service impl, right? So let me open controller, user controller. From here we can start. So user controller, the moment we save the user, it is credentials, we are not encrypting it, right? So go to user service impl. So here if you observe, so whatever business logic we have written, nowhere we have not encrypting the password, right? So now let me encrypt the password. So how we can encrypt the password? So in custom security configuration we have created a bean called bcrypt password encoder, right? So by using bcrypt password encoder we are going to encrypt the user credentials. So now if you open bcrypt password encoder, there is a method called encode, right? We have a encode method, and you can see bcrypt password is having bcrypt password encode is having a lot of methods and constructors. So we can pass, say there is a encode method is available. So if you observe, this bcrypt password encoder implements the password encoder. So this is the interface. If you go to inside the password encoder, again it has encode method. So this encode method, uh, it is overriding in bcrypt password encoder, right? So now we can use password encoder interface, we can create an object of bcrypt password encoder. So earlier what we are doing, we are directly creating an object of bcrypt password with the help of new keyword, but so in real time environment it is always create with interface, better create with interface. So now I am going to use password encoder. So instead of bcrypt password encoder, so how we can create a bcrypt password encoder object? with the help of interface password encoder. So bcrypt password encoder implements password encoder. So let's use this interface. That's it. Organize the imports, control shift to O. That's it. How we can create an object of interface, since it is a password encoder is a interface. With the help of subclass we can create interface object, right? Everybody aware of it. So now we can use password encoder bean, and then we can encode our user password. So go to user service impl. So user jpa repository dot save method is storing user details, right? So here uh, create a instance of password encoder, private password encoder. So password encoder is available in Spring. You can see there is a package Spring framework dot security dot crypto package. So inside that we have a password encoder. So let me create an object of password encoder. So who is going to create an object of this password encoder? So let's Spring container will create. So let me declare it as a auto wire. So that's it. So where we have declared this means, so with the help of Spring security configuration, so we have declared a bean, right? So this bean object will be initialized during the runtime. So once server you started successfully, that time all the beans which are declared in a custom configuration will be initialized during the runtime. So I am using password encoder bean to encode the password. So go to user service impl, and then I have created password encoder instance, and I have declared it as a auto while. So Spring container will create an object of password encoder during the runtime. Okay, so now during the server startup. Okay, so now password encoder, we can copy this password encoder, and from we can there is a method, right? Encode method, password encoder dot, there is a encode method. So here we have to pass user dto. From user dto we have a password method, right? Get password method. So that's it. So now we have encrypted the password. So the encrypted password we have to store in user entity, right? So now how we can pass? So what encode method will return? We'll check. Encode method will return string object. So this encode method will return encrypted password. Encrypted password, it will return as a string. So now let me declare it as a string, string string. Which string? Encrypted string, right? Encrypted password is equal, that's it. So this we have to store it in user entity or user dto, anywhere you can set. You can reset the password in user dto. Why? Because here we are mapping dto to entity, right? So let's do it here itself. So user dto dot set password. So here you need to send encrypted password. So the moment entity to DTO conversion is happening, so user entity will have encrypted password. So you can set here, as well as you can set directly after entity also. So here also you can set encrypted password in entity as well, or you can set encrypted password in DTO, and you can set that details into entity. It's very easy, guys. So now let me create one new user, and we'll see whether that user credentials are stored in encrypted format or not. So now open the database, refresh. So far we have 5 users. So now I'm going to create new user, and that user credentials will store it in database as a encrypted format. And right, so because since we are encoding the password, it is stored in password should store as a encrypted password, right? So now let me go to our web application and try to log in. So generally that registration page should be, link should be in sign in page, right? So later we'll change that. So now as of now, let me log in as a static credentials. So what are the static credentials we have now? Sachin and Sachin at 123. I am going to use static credentials as of now. Sachin, Sachin at 123 and click on sign in button. So we are able to log in. Now I am going to create a Saurav Ganguly. Saurav Ganguly. And email I will give Saurav @gmail.com. Password I will give test at 123. So now Saurav Ganguly writes SOURAV I have given. Okay, now click on submit button. See, user registered successfully. Now go to our database, refresh the table, and you can see here if you observe. So this is no, so by mistake I have modified some data. So let me remove this. Okay, so now refresh the table and you can see if you observe so uh, Saurav user is created in database and that password is encrypted and stored in database. So earlier we used to store it as a raw format, right? So now text format. So now it is encrypted format. So nobody don't know the password of Saurav Ganguly after seeing this database credentials, right? So this is how we have to encrypt the password in database. There are different ways are there. Most of the some people will use SHA password algorithm and different types of algorithms are there. So by using those algorithms we can 256 algorithm also there. So by using algorithms we can encrypt the password. Since we have a Spring Security latest version of Spring Security is providing bcrypt password encoder, we are using bcrypt password encoder. So we no need to use any algorithms now. So Spring Security is encrypting the password and storing into the database. So here we just need to, before storing the user information, we have to encrypt our password with the help of password encoder, and then we have to persist in database. So that's it. So now we have encrypted the password. Now how we can log in with these credentials? So far we have created custom, this is a static user details, right? User details object I have created, and inside that we are using static credentials. So instead of that, now we have to log in with the user which is stored in database by using Saurav Ganguly and his credentials. I have to log in, right? So now we have to create user details object from database. So here we have created static credentials, and these static credentials we are storing into in-memory user details manager. Now instead of this we have to create user details service, and inside that user details service we have to read user information from database. So how we can do that? So go to our where we have to write user business logic in user service IMPL, right? So user service IMPL already implemented user service. So now what I will do, so in a custom security configuration there is a user details. So we have created user detail service, right? So same user detail service we are going to create in user service IMPL. So now go to our interface, there is a Spring Security user detail service. So extends user details service, you can see user details service. So this user details service is available in Spring Framework security.core.user details package. So now I will tell you later why we have extended this user details interface. This is an interface. Okay, it has load by username method. So the moment we extend this user detail service, we have to override load user by username. So now go to our user service IMPL. If you see now user service IMPL is showing error message. See, add unimplemented method. So since we have our user detail service service interface is extended another interface, and it has a load user by username method. So whenever you are implementing particular interface, what are all the abstract methods which are available in interface, we must override in subclass, right? So now let me override that. So just click on here, so load by username and add unimplemented method, click on that. So that's it. So add unimplemented method. If you check here, load user by username, we have overridden. So what will happen, whenever we are trying to log into our web application, the control directly will go to load user by username. So authentication filter will execute this load user by username with the help of in previous lecture, previous classes I have teach you, right? So in Spring Security execution, first the request will go to authentication filter, then manager, after that authentication provider. So internally all those things will be being called, and after that, so load user by username will be executed. So now what we can do now, so now this username will come from login screen. So if you open login screen, so later I will open login screen. So now whatever email id which you entered in login screen, that login screen username will user id will come from sorry that from JSP, whatever email id which you have entered, those email id we are going to get in load user by username. So since we have extended user details service of Spring Security, so now here we need to read user information from database. Let's read it. So earlier here we have in custom security configuration, we have added a we have created a static user information, right? Instead of that, now we have to read user information from database. Go to user service IMPL, and now here let me log in. So from the let me load user information from database. So how we can read information from database user information? So there is a user JPA repository. So with the help of this instance, we can read the data from database respective user information. So dot, so there is a method, right? Find by id we have created, there is a find by email. So use that find by email, that's it. So username we need to pass, so email id will be read from database. So this find by email will return user entity, right? So now let's return the user entity, user entity. That's it. So earlier, very simple guys, earlier in custom security configuration, where we have passed username and password, so username we have passed with the help of user dot with username. This user is again it is from Spring Security. So there is a package user information. If you open here, that user specific user, see Spring Security dot core dot user details dot user. So this is the user. From this user we are setting our static credentials. Now with the same user we are going to set this username and password from the database. Just copy this, any one of statement, just copy and go to your user service IMPL and paste it here. That's it. So now we no need to encode the password now. Why? Because already password is encoded and we are persisting in database, right? Remove this. So now how we can now already user entity is having user information. Now pass the user email with username method. That's it. Dot get email and password. Password also same, user entity dot get password. That's it. So now we just need to return it. So this user, if you go to insert the user, it will return again. If you can see user details, user credentials, right? So now it will return user details service. So if you check the user information, it will return user details service. If you go to with username, see, with username builder dot username, it will return user builder. So now let me check the password and build. If you return, let me return the user detail service with the help of return statement. That's it. So now this entire statement will return user details service. So that's it guys, very easy, very easy. So this is how we can authenticate uh, user information from database. So now let me try to log in with user credentials which are stored in database. Okay, so let me show you saurav at gmail.com. So I have stored password as a test123, right? Test at the rate 123. So let me copy saurav at the rate gmail.com and then go to our web application and click enter. So already earlier authentication already done, right? So let me log out static credentials. Earlier we have logged in with static credentials. Now we are going to log in with saurav at gmail.com. What is the password I have given? Test at 123, all small letters. Test at 123. Now click on sign in button. See, it is saying no authentication provider found. Why? So username password authentication token, it is throwing some exception. Let's debug now. So what is the reason? Might be I have entered wrong credentials. Let me put breakpoint and check it. How we can debug it? Go to user service impl and put breakpoint here, enable the breakpoint and run server in debug mode. Very easy guys. I'm stopping the server, I'm executing in debug mode. I'm executing the server in debug mode. The server started in debug mode. Now you will get to know whether this load user by username is being called or not. So now just execute this. This is Eclipse issue. You don't need to bother about it. This one. So you just skip that execution button and now clear the console. So now go to your browser and again refresh the browser and put the password saurav at gmail.com. Sorry, username saurav at gmail.com. And paste it here, and I have given I think test at 123 only, test at 123 at the rate 123. Click on sign in button. So it's not calling. Why? Because let's see, load by username method is not being called. Yeah, I will tell you why it is not calling. So we forgot to uncomment the security configuration, right? See, in custom security configuration we have given static credentials, right? So still during the runtime these credentials only stored in authentication context during the server startup. Now this is nowhere needed. We need to comment it out, this code. This code we no need now. Why? Because we have created our custom user details object, sorry, custom user detail service we have created, right? So this is not at all needed. That is the reason we are unable to log in guys. I forgot to comment this code. So now what we can do, go to our application again and go to the browser and log in with saurav at gmail.com and password test at 123 and click on sign in button. That's it. See, Eclipse is blinking. So breakpoint came to our you load by username method. Why this method is being called? Nowhere we are calling this method, but still it is being called, right? Why? Because in user details service interface we have extends user details service. This is from spring security. So authentication filter will call this user details service. Internally it will execute user details service. Who are all watching newly, you can watch previous videos to understand how user details is being called. Okay, so now go to user details service and execute the our business logic function f8. So next control came to next block or function f6. If you see user information came, we are successfully able to retrieve the user information. You can see the password also in coming as a encrypted mode. Now I am press f8, that's it. So now you can see we are able to log in successfully. So we are able to log in credentials from database. Now let me create a new user. So now I will disable the breakpoint. So I don't want to debug. So now what will happen? Clear the console. I want to create new user, and let's log in with the new user credentials. So let me create now which user I can create. Let me create Shah Rukh Khan, or let me create um, Subman Gill. Okay, Shubman Gill, and Shubman is the email. So Subman at gmail.com. Subman@gmail.com. So let me copy this email ID to log in. So now password I am giving it as a Subman at 123. All are small letters. You must remember the password. Otherwise you cannot crack it. Subman at 123. I have given Subman at 123 is the password. Submit. So user registered successfully. So now let me log out. So click on log out and let me try to log in from. If you open the database, just refresh the table, you can see shubman at gmail.com is created, and password also stored in database as a encrypted format. So now shubman at gmail.com, and then I just copy pasted. You can type also. So now password. What is the password I have given? Shubman, all small letters. Shubman at 123. And now click on sign in button. See, we are able to log in with database credentials. So in next lecture what we will do, so generally this login user registration form page should be link should be there in login page, right? So let me log out. So here we will create our this login.jsp is coming from Spring Security. So this is default page is coming, this login default page is coming from Spring Security. In next lecture we'll create our own custom login page, and in that login page after sign in button we'll create one link, register user. So once click on register user, then only registration form will come. So after that we'll register with user information. We using that registered user, we are going to log in with our custom login page. Okay guys, so thank you so much. So who are all watching newly, please subscribe and learn Spring Boot, microservices, Angular JS, and all rest other concepts. There are different ways are there to implement business logics to log in with user credentials. So this is one of the way. Very easy guys. Thank you.